Well, tonight we have a great speaker, Will Townsley, DMA, and I'm not sure what those initials mean, but it has something to do with being a music expert. And I want to thank Will for filling in at the last minute here because our previous speaker wound up having a gig tonight. And that happens in the music world. So,
Okay, let me
uh,
tell you a little bit about Will. Is that okay?
yeah, tell us all about Will.
Okay, well, he's a composer, arranger, film composer, sound designer, and songwriter. And he's assistant professor of music at the University of Texas in Arlington. So he's a member of Dallas Songwriters Association, and he's also performed in several of our showcases. He's from Arlington and or lives in Arlington now, and he won in 2023 the grand prize honorable mention for his song "Nothing to Do with You," and he's a former writer for Curb Publishing and Al Jolson Black and White Music, both out of Nashville. Will Townsley's songs have been recorded by Jason Ashley, Colt Prather, and others. Will has performed with artists that include Sammy Kershaw and Joe Nichols, and opened for Jake Owen and Brett Young and Chris Jansen and Richie McDonald, Lodestar, Larry Stewart, Restless Heart, Tim Ruslow of Little Texas, Blues Travelers, and the Wilder Blue. He's performed for major organizations, including the Dallas Cowboys, and was invited to perform at songwriter showcases that include the world famous Bluebird Cafe in Nashville and the Wildflower Music Festival. Will teaches currently teaches at University of Texas in Arlington, and he's teaching music in the commercial music vein, I believe. And so he's going to tell us all about what he's up to, and he can tell us what the DMA stands for.
Yeah, and give us some tips.
Everybody, welcome Will Townsley.
Welcome, Will.
Well,
Yay.
thank you guys for having me. Um, I guess I just, when Bobby called me, I wasn't sure. I never get to do these things because I'm gig. As a matter of fact, I'm gigging tonight. I was just happen to have friends that will cover for me for a few extra minutes before I have to leave. But um, I don't know what I can offer here. I can just tell you a little bit about my journey. Similar to most of you, I, um, I got interested in songwriting at a young age. I mean, I started piddling around with trying to write stuff at around 10 or 11. I was always just fascinated with words and rhyme. I started doing a gig in back in the day, and when Dallas Alley was big, and I got a gig at a dueling piano bar, which forced me to learn a lot of songs, a lot of cover songs. Um, Through there, I met a guy named Richard Tyson, and Richard, he had written a song that was on the Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack, and he won 2 Grammys for that. And then I really kind of got interested in the songwriting thing. Um, and probably at that point in my life, I was very young. I was getting into it for all the wrong reasons. Uh, but I just loved it. Richard introduced me to Barb actually. Um, and so, I go do my thing. Years later, I, uh, once I started teaching about 3 years ago, and I said, you know what? I bet DSA is still going. And sure enough, I reached out to Barb and started trying to get a little bit more involved in everything. And it's been great. I love the competition. I love hearing everybody's stuff, and it's great. Um, so I still am a gigging musician. I still do a lot of cover songs. At one point, I was working in Billy Bob's, Texas, in the back room, and I played. I think it's a coat room now. I played before the main act went on the main stage, and after the main act was over. One weekend, Conway Twitty was supposed to play, and he had passed away that week. And I walked up to the lady that was managing, and I said, I've never seen this place so empty. I mean, if you can imagine Billy Bob's empty on a Friday night, it was fairly empty. I said, who'd you guys get to come in? And she said, we got a guy named Skip Ewing to come in. I said, well, who's Skip Ewing? And she goes, oh, he's kind of a singer-songwriter kind of thing. And it was the first time I was able to actually, the place was so empty, I was actually able to walk down and sit on the front bench. And as I sat down, Skip had a band, and he goes, why don't you guys just go take a break? And I'm just going to sit up there. And so he said, well, I'm just going to play you guys some songs you may have heard that I've written. And so just him and a guitar, and he just started playing hit after hit after hit. And I'm down there, I mean, I'm, 23, 24 at the time, and I'm going, you wrote that? You wrote that? Just over and over. So I really started becoming a fan of songwriting, and I went out not knowing much about him, but this was before everything digital and downloads and everything, and I was going to every used record store I could to find any cassette or album with Skip Ewing. He said he had put out some work, so and I just started soaking up his stuff. He, everybody has a guy. That was the guy that kick-started it for me. Fast forward, I just studied his songs like crazy. I moved to Nashville kind of on a whim. I was there for about 3 months. I had a friend that was already there. And I said, well, man, how do I get into this? He goes, man, it's just, everything's who you know. So I said, well, can you help me out? I think I've got some decent stuff. Maybe not great, but decent. And he goes, well, I know this guy. He's a song plugger, but he also has a deal at Curb. To this day, I'll never know, but I said, listen, my friend gave me your number. I was wondering if you'd be interested in getting together, maybe writing or something. And he's like, yeah, I'll listen to it. And about 3 days later, he called me. He goes, man, I'll write with you. So I'd sent him like 3 things. One of them wasn't even complete. And he said, yeah, let's do this one you didn't finish. So, and it was kind of a sappy song. And I said, man, why'd you write with me? Years later, he said, I wrote with you because at that time, his wife was pregnant and probably really emotional. And he goes, I play everything for her. And he goes, I played the thing you sent, and she just started crying. I was like, okay, well, I didn't mean to, but we ended up being good friends. We're still really good friends. He now has left the songwriting industry, and he is just he's one of the top music engineers in Nashville right now. His name's Billy Decker. And he's probably mixed 17 number 1 albums, I think, now. But I still stay in touch with him. Long and the short, after about 5 years, I just felt like Nashville wasn't for me. And I moved back to Texas and kind of got back into the gigging thing and still doing the dueling thing. And, but I've always written since then, and still try to kind of, a lot of people in Nashville, after you leave, they don't want to talk to you anymore. And I've had a couple people that are still friends with me, but, I was friends with Joe Nichols in Nashville, and that was before he got a record deal. And so you leave Nashville and you go, hey, Joe, you remember me? And the phone doesn't ring back. But I did learn a lot. I learned about writing, but most importantly, the most important thing I learned is just relationships or everything, even if you're not in Nashville, even just being a part of this meeting today is something. And I don't, like I said, I stay really busy and I don't get to do as much of this as I want. Um, but I still try to do as much as I can. I still try to meet people. I still try to, even if they shrug me off. Um, but if your ambition is to be a hit writer, you know, I met a hit songwriter named Chase McGill very recently, and a friend of mine was standing next to him. He goes, "Man, with everything digital now, all the capabilities of sending songs through email, through disco, through whatever platform, you know, can a guy like me make it?" And he said, "No." And he goes, "Well, what do I got to do?" And he said, "Well," his response I'll never forget. He goes, "You don't see a lot of surfers heading to Oklahoma, do you?" So, Nashville is still a very much, you got to be present to win. I love the city. I still try to visit it when I can, and I still try to make new connections when I go up there. I have a couple of friends that have had some successes of being Texans and traveling back and forth. They spend a lot of time away from Texas, being there. One of them being Scott Shawn White, who's had two Cody Johnson cuts. But he's supporting himself by traveling and doing that sort of thing.
So, by the way, Scott Shawn White was one of our International Song Contest winners in the 90s, the late 90s, I think.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal writer. Um, I met him doing like an open mic thing that my friend was hosting. He was trying to get a songwriters night going, and my friend had been telling me about it. You got to hear this guy. I invited him. He might show up. And I said, "Well, man, I'd love to meet him." And he showed up, and he had heard a couple of things I did. And he's like, "Man," and Scott invited me. He used to host songwriting events, and I would show up to as many of those as I could. He's a phenomenal writer, but you know, just meeting people, meeting everybody, and you never know. That's just it. You never know who's going to be at a meeting. Um, Scott has turned me on to other writers that I wasn't aware of. That I'm like, wow, these guys. So now, my goal isn't commercial songwriting per se. I just want to write good songs. And if something happens to them, great. There's a guy named Ralph Murphy who he's got a great seminar on YouTube. It's the one that looks like he's in a classroom because he is in a classroom. I think he's at Belmont or something. And, he talks about there's two kinds of songwriters. There's the 10 p.m. songwriter, and those are your, John Prines and Jason Isbells and stuff. And then there's your 8 a.m. songwriters, and those are your, I heard someone mention Mac McAnally and the Mac McAnallys and Chase McGills and Hardys and those people. One's obviously a commercial route. One is just a non-commercial route, yet it could be a commercial route. So just depending on your fan base, I guess, or building a fan base for that. Someone out there is going to like your stuff. But just listening to everybody talk and, Bobby and James and everything said that, how many songs he's written. That's how you do it. You do it over and over and over. And you're going to write bad songs. And I still write bad songs, but they're getting less and less. But, I'm not trying to write for a publisher anymore. I'm trying to just write for me. But yeah, I just, I learned in Nashville to find different ways of doing things and to find different angles. There's a great Texas writer. I heard a song of his the other day. His name's Jason Eady. He wrote a song called Barabbas. I mean, how many titles do you see called Barabbas? And if you're familiar with biblical scripture, he wrote a song from the point of view of Barabbas, who they set free when Pontius Pilate was saying, "Who should I free?" You know, like, who writes a song like that? That's thinking differently. So that's the one thing I really got out of Nashville that I really still try to do. Even if I'm not trying to write for commercial purposes, I try to find a different way to say something and just try to, that. And just being open to ideas. I heard Liz Rose, who she's written, I think she put Taylor Swift on the map with all the songs she wrote for her. But I heard her, someone say, "What do you do about writer's block?" She goes, "I don't believe in it." She goes, if you can't think of stuff, you're not paying attention. And you just got to get in the mindset where you're always listening, having conversation. Anything could be a song. As a matter of fact, at the beginning, Bobby was talking to someone, Michael or someone, about grandchildren, and they were talking about the family tree. And I think Michael or Bobby said the word grand tree. And I went, that could be something, that's something that stuck out to me. So I'm always listening for ideas. And I try different styles now. I don't just, back then I was just trying to only write country music. I am now open to trying to write any style right now. And I'll just pause there if anybody has any questions or anything, or, and I know some of you got a lot of experience. Probably some of you are in Nashville or something. I don't know. And again, my Nashville experience, I had a lot of what they call holds by artists. And that's where an artist will go, "We like this song, we're going to hold it." And that artist will go and cut 30 songs for an album, and only 10 of those get picked. So I have a lot of demos sung by famous people. I call them demos sung by famous people, but, including Shane McAnally, who's a big songwriter in Nashville. Shane was doing demo singing when I was there. And now he's one of the biggest writers with his own publishing company now, Smack Music. But yeah, you never know who you're going to meet. Meet everybody. That's the advice I tell my students at school. I always say, "Hey, I'm bringing in this guest artist," and I say, you're losing out if you don't come meet this person. "Well, they're not going to remember my name." No, they're not going to remember your name. But the next time you see them, because there will be a next time, you'll go, "You don't remember me, but I saw you at wherever." And then that opens up a conversation at least, or they might blow you off. What's the worst that could happen? They say no. Oh, that's another thing I learned about Nashville. Get used to hearing the word no. So I know hit writers that still hear no. So, but anyway, is anybody, I'm sitting here jabbering on, but does anybody have any questions or anything?
When they had that reality show of the songwriter reality show that Shane McAnally was on, where they had like three people that would come in and present songs, and then one person would win and they get to write with him and record that song. It only lasted one season, but it was a great show. I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Shane's great. He's just such a talented writer.
Yeah, he also wrote that musical, Shucks,
Oh,
or whatever.
yeah, Shucked.
I saw it. They developed it here in Dallas, and Bobby and I went to see it at the Wiley Theater, and it was fun. It was great. But I heard that they'd even changed it a lot and made it better when it went to.
Yeah.
But that's so there's an idea that here's a songwriter who could write across the board if you saw that show, he was writing pop and country and all kinds of genres, and then musical theater. So it's it's fun to do all kinds. You don't have to just be one genre.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people forget, if you know who Roger Miller is,
Yeah.
he was known for those quirky songs, but yet he won the Tony for the best music. The musical, he wrote all the songs in the musical Big River
River.
from 1985.
Oh yeah.
And those songs, if you just listen to them as songs, they're perfectly crafted, you know. I saw a documentary on him, and they said he was holed up in a hotel room, and they're like, Roger, we need songs. We haven't seen you in 3 weeks. We haven't seen you in a month. The guy goes, knocks on his hotel door and says, Roger, I need a song. And Roger said, if you want Earl Scheib, I'll give you Earl Scheib. If you want Picasso, you're going to have to wait. So, so, but yeah, I mean, you got to be open to anything. I think as a songwriter, I was fortunate enough years later to attend a seminar with Skip Ewing. And he said, you should be able to write about anything, which is something I do for exercises. Sometimes I go, I'm going to write about this pair of AirPods sitting on my desk and maybe see what I can come up with. Sometimes I use prompts. A lot of times a movie will prompt something. My goodness, if you watch the show Yellowstone, every other line in that show is a song. You know, I mean, I'm like, oh, there's a song, there's a song, there's a song.
Sheridan is such a great writer. He's
Yeah.
such good lines. Yes.
Well, it's funny. A side story. I showed up to play we just, we just get paperwork that says, oh, you're going to go play this corporate gig. This is for a birthday party. And I show up in Fort Worth to this massive mansion. And my friend's there setting up, and I'm looking around, and the lady introduces herself as like the chef. She was wearing jeans and stuff. It was very casual kind of like atmosphere. And I said, "Oh, is this a birthday game you're playing?" And I was looking at the place settings on the tables, and she said, "I don't understand what you're talking about." I said, "Well, I see these names around the table, and is it like guess who I am?" And she goes, "No, these are the actual people that will be sitting here." So I played at a party where Taylor Sheridan, Demi Moore, Billy Bob Thornton, Allie Larder. The birthday was Taylor Sheridan's wife. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. And that was before anybody knew what Landman was or anything. But so again, you never know who you're going to meet. So,
Do your best all the time. Somebody, and there's also, there's certain ways that, you talk about writing doing different kinds of writing and stuff, like for different things, like for the wildflower uh, thing, they're very oriented. That contest is very oriented to folk music, and so they really are hone in on storytelling songs. Is what they really like, and the less commercial, the better. Whereas other contests are not like that. They want to hear a well constructed pop song that you'd hear on the radio. But Wildflower is not like that. It's more of the folk kind of thing and a coffee house thing and those
yeah.
Americana.
artists. So it's different places require different kinds of songwriting. I think.
Yeah. I agree. And, I'm gravitating more toward that kind of, like I don't know, a Jason Isbell or a Zane Williams type of writing. That's just good songs. I show up every first Tuesday of the month to go see Zane because he's always got another writer with him. and they're just doing a song swap. And I'm just sitting there with my jaw on the ground going, wow. And like, this is going to sound mean, but you're never going to hear any of those songs on the radio. Maybe Texas radio, I don't know. But I'm like, these are amazing songs. And the great thing is, it packs out every single time because people just want to hear good songs.
Where is this?
When he's not on tour with the Wilder Blue, Zane Williams performs at the local yokel. It's actually a listening room adjoined to the local yokel barbecue in McKinney. And the listening room's called the Augustus, but it's, go eat barbecue and then just walk across the hall to the listening room. And it's a dedicated listening room. They tell everybody, it's kind of like the Bluebird, hey, if you want to talk, go somewhere else. If you want to sit and listen to songs, but it's great. Every song's a great story. As a matter of fact, funny, I didn't get to go to the last one. My wife went, and Jason Eady was his guest. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I'd seen that. But you never know who he's going to have. And that's when he's, not doing stadium tours or something. So
we were fortunate enough to have him as a speaker, weren't we, Barb? 10, 15 years ago, huh? It's been a while.
Yeah.
When he first came back from Nashville.
Yeah. I was very impressed. But I haven't seen him since, I guess.
It's funny. He's a great story too, because I've known him for a while. He came and talked to the at UTA, and he was very blunt about everything, about his dealings with Nashville and everything. He said he didn't like that you would just write with somebody, and he goes, well, what about that song? The guy told him, as soon as we write a song and turn it in, I forget about it. And Zane's like, I can't do that. So the funny thing is, Zane says, okay, Nashville's not for me. As he's moving back to Texas, he gets a top 20 single cut on the radio. And he said, I got a check in the mail for $290,000. And he goes, we bought our house in McKinney. So, but, Zane also won the John Lennon songwriting competition.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He won the $20,000. And
Did he come up through Dallas Songwriters Association?
No, he became part of us when he came back from Nashville.
Right. I remember listening to him a few times, and yes, he's a great songwriter.
Yeah,
and he's making his living touring around, as you know. But I've heard several of his songs, but I've never heard a bad one.
Yeah. Now that's likewise. I've never heard a bad one by him. And they're all just clever.
Well, I have to believe he's written some bad ones, but he never published them.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's ever written any bad ones.
I'm sure he did when he was younger. Who knows? But I was like, Zane, did you come from a musical family? He's like, both of my parents are professors. And so, it just kind of picked him. That's what I always say. If you're here, it picked you. You didn't pick songwriting; it picked you. So, but that's the thing I love about going to the Wildflower thing is, or even when I get to listen to the award show for the songwriting competition, it's just, I'm like, wow, somebody said something really cool. Somebody said something really different. And these are all just great stories. And winner or not, we're all, if you're new here, enter the contest anyway. Write something. Enter it. Or get feedback on your songs. And, I tell you, one of the things, my class with young students, they get their feelings hurt really easily. And we try to be as constructive as we can, obviously. But, and there it's mostly mechanics. Well, you did this, but you changed tenses here, and now you're talking about something totally unrelated, and or you're rhyming just for the sake of rhyming and that kind of thing. You just strayed way off. Well, I've really felt this, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not knocking that, you know. Like I said, so now first day of class, I go, if your feelings are easily hurt, drop now. So, so, but yeah, it's you know, uh, learn cover songs too. That's Scott Sean White told me. He goes, we got good at songwriting because it's in our DNA from playing in those covers songs all those years. We just soaked up the writing. We soaked it up the chord changes and stuff. And
That is so important. It really is. It's learn those cover songs because
yeah, learn good cover songs anyway.
yeah.
You know. So now I'm just trying to learn songs by these artists now that I'm like becoming new to these. There's a guy out there named Eric Erdman who is a phenomenal writer. As a matter of fact, he and Scott Sean Wright wrote a song together. But the Jason Isbells, they're out there, and that's one of the things I love about this group is and this organization is, no matter what level you are, I was just lucky in my career to be able to do what I've done. I'm just lucky. I could have very easily not done that. And I know everybody here probably, if you're not new, you have had some kind of level of success with your songs, doing something. But I always feel awkward when people ask me for song advice because it's so subjective. And I was like, well, so I just kind of tell them the things I told you tonight. So.
Well, does anybody have any questions? We have the pro here, the professor, DMA. What is DMA?
That stands for Doctor of Musical Arts. So
Well, absolutely.
I weirdly I went and saw a doctorate and um, a doctorate in saxophone performance actually from TCU. So which I haven't touched my saxophone in a month. So been too busy writing.
Oh, good.
I
You know,
love saxophone, and you just don't hardly hear it in pop music anymore.
No.
When uh, thrift, thrift store or thrift shop came, and had the little saxophone ditty in there, I thought, oh, good,
Yeah.
it's coming back, but it didn't.
Yeah,
So
I thought it was coming back for a little bit and it didn't.
that's not the same as musicology, is it?
No, musicology is more like music history.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a friend that teaches at TCU, Stuart
Yeah.
Cheney. Maybe
Oh my gosh, I was
yeah.
his TA.
Oh my gosh. Our daughters grew up together and we were
Wow.
neighbors. Yeah, yeah.
It's a funny story about him. That guy, he's like well rooted in like Baroque music and
Medieval. Yeah, he
everything.
played viola da gamba. Yeah.
Yes. I went into his office because I was his TA that semester. And he goes, well, let's meet before the semester. I went in his office and he had all these CDs of James Brown and Steve
Oh
Winwood.
yeah.
And
Oh, I mean, he plays Zeppelin at home.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this isn't exactly scholarly music. He goes, depends on who you're talking to.
For
And he
sure.
goes, by the way, you can have that CD. It's not his best work. So
Wow.
my first meeting with him,
I love it.
um, was great because we sat and talked. But when I was doing my exit exams, they gave me they give everyone some scholarly question. And it's usually opera related or,
Yeah.
classical related. Somehow the straw I drew was, and I'll never forget it, discuss the paper they give you is some scholarly work that's been published. And it was like cyclical motion in Manfred Mann's Blinded by the Light. And I went,
Oh yeah.
this is my wheelhouse.
I love it.
So when I was having my you know, you basically have to give a lecture to the professors.
Mm.
And I basically made the paper was stating that Manfred Mann was the first to kind of use that motion. And I made the argument that James Brown had done it years before. And the second I mentioned James Brown's name, and this is before I was his TA that semester, but he just looked up from what he was doing.
I bet you
And
made
we
Stuart
got
so
on
happy.
we got on the biggest discussion of James Brown.
That's cool.
And he plays in a classic rock band with two other professors. Um,
Oh, see, I didn't even know that. They
oh
moved to
yeah, he
Fort
plays
Worth, and I'm
bass.
still in Dallas. Yeah,
He plays
yeah.
electric bass.
I
If
will
they
have to
still are doing
mention
it.
that I met you. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
So yeah, he he's one of my favorite people that I ever met there.
Hmm,
Um,
nice.
and he was just it was great because it, you know, they're I don't want to use the word well, I won't use the word. But it was great that he was open to such a broad array of listening when I know a lot of people that are not.
Yeah.
You know, same thing with the guy that I took a sacred music class with.
Hmm.
I was like, "You're in the classic rock band with Cheney?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "How do you feel? Like, what does it look?" And he's like, "Will, 20 years from now, nobody's going to be listening to Pierre Luneau by Schoenberg or whatever." And I'm like, I didn't say it, you know.
Nice.
And so I was like,
Yeah.
okay. But
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it takes
Well,
a special kind of person to kind of move through all of those different, spaces, I think.
right. But music is music. And, you know, Mozart was the popular music of his day.
Mhm.
And, you know, it, whenever, until things changed, until the Beatles changed things,
Yeah.
until, you know, easy listening. Perry Como was the pop star of his day. Bing Crosby was the pop star of his day. Sinatra was the pop star of his day.
Mm-hmm.
And then things radically changed with Elvis and Chuck Berry and blues, really. You know,
Yeah.
I have a small fascination with blues music,
Mm.
just because it kind of kickstarts everything we do today. So,
Yeah.
Too. Me too. And so does Michael. Michael.
That's right. Love the blues.
Will
Thank
really
you,
enjoyed all
Jamie.
that was a good story. I enjoyed every bit of that.
I appreciate it. Blues is another thing too. You know, every year there's another society called the Trinity River Blues Society. They have an annual blues challenge, and I mean, I do it just for fun. There's the people that you are competing with, they are up here, and I go just to show blues tunes I've written. I just go, hey, here's some tunes I've written. You know, again, another opportunity to. But I love writing that stuff. I think it's fun, play, and but you know, like I said, I'm open to everything now. So
Does anybody have any questions? Anybody else have questions?
I
Okay.
don't have a question, but Will, I sure want to thank you for being our guest speaker tonight. You've been
Yeah,
very
we
interesting
really
and
do. Thank
I
you very much.
appreciate
gathering the
it.
attention
Well,
of everybody here. I'm sure they can
I
see
always
some
feel
parallels and some shortfalls by comparison, but yeah, you're an inspiration to us, and I thank you for that.
well, I appreciate just being a part of this group, and you guys are always kind to me whenever I see you, and it's always great just hearing the stuff that's happening within this group, and you know, um, there's just good stuff happening, and
I,
probably the strongest group. And it's a great thing is it's international. So
I
Can you
learned
tell
just
us? Oh, go ahead.
I learned just recently that Will and I are pretty much neighbors. He lives just a few miles away from me,
yeah,
and I kind of think I'd like to get together with him and do some co-writing.
well, let's do that. Let's make that happen. Yeah, yeah, you're
I was just
just down the
wondering if you
street.
could. I was wondering if you could tell us your top one or two or three songs we might could find in the world that you've been a part of that we could listen to what you've written.
Oh wow, uh,
What's your
I
favorite?
have not posted anything. I'm in the process of, I had a website, and it's a funny story. Actually, well,
It
I'm
could
in
be
the
well, somebody
process of,
else recorded. That'd be fine.
you know what? If you give me a second, I'll see if it's still, um, okay. Um, I need to update it. It's not, this has been on my list to do, as a matter of fact, this week, because I've written a ton of stuff since then. Basically, I had restructured my website because I had gotten a call about scoring a film. And I went, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. I've done it before. I've got about 9 films total. You can see some of them. I'm on IMDb for some documentary work I've done. If you type in my name, and the one, I'm sure there's probably more than one Will Townsley, but the one that says composer. So what I ended up doing was changing my website, because he goes, well, I need some type of site or something. And so I went, ah. So I went and changed everything to kind of gear toward the film scoring, so to speak. But I have not changed it back to the songwriting one. Having said that, I just checked it. If you go to townsleymusic.com, there is a page at the top, and it says song portfolio. And there's probably about 6 songs on there. But I have written way better songs since. Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm just, like I said, whatever's on there is really old. So, but I am in the process of changing that. So,
Well, I don't know how long you can stay around, but the next portion of our meeting are song critiques, which you talked about that a little bit. People present either new songs or old songs they've kind of redone, and we give them a little critique from our industry pros, Barb McMillan and Joe Milton.
I think
well,
yeah,
I
I'm
would
going
love
first.
to,
Pardon me?
I I would love to stick around, but I have to get to that gig.
Okay.
But if you guys ever want to reach out, or you think of questions, or you have comments or anything, um, my email address is townsleymusic uh, at gmail.com. And there might be a link on that old website to reach me as well. But again, that website is really old and not updated. I'm trying to get it updated. I'm actually trying to do a release. I'm in the process of recording an album now, and trying to get that released. So, but it's just so much work. So I'm a multi-instrumentalist, so I'm trying to do everything myself until I feel the need to call in the pros. But it's been a pleasure meeting everybody. And again, the old Nashville goodbye is, hey, let's write sometime. So you've heard of the Irish goodbye, the Nashville goodbye is, hey, let's write sometime. So, but yeah, you guys, I'd be happy to answer anything, and I'll see y'all maybe at the next Wildflower, or the next, hopefully I can show up to one of these again soon, and when my schedule's not so busy. But it's always great seeing you guys. Thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you, Will. Thank you very much.